Recording in progress.
Welcome everyone to the council meeting September 3rd, 2024. Anyone in the audience who's amplifying headphones, please raise your hand and we'll bring it up to you. Not seeing any, let's write the pledge. Pledge of allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will. Councilmember Blush.
Here.
Councilmember Stearns.
Here.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Here.
Mayor Nesco.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sherman.
Here.
And we have Councilmember Sept via Zoom.
Here.
And Councilmember Gutierrez.
Here. Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
The council have any late changes to the agenda? City manager?
At the time, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Council have any board reports to share? See. Moving on. Are we ready for a reading of the consent agenda? Donna, will you please read the consent agenda?
Yes. Vouchers numbered 111381 through 111413 and EFT payment numbers 589 through 610 in the total amount of $97,900.75. Vouchers numbered 111427 through 111457 and EFT payment numbers 611 through 623 in the total amount of $147,056.58. Payroll warrants numbered 3994 and 13186 through 13242. Warrants 111415 through 111426 in the amount of $368,593.31. We have two resolutions. Resolution number 1343-0824. A resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the city manager to accept grant funds in the amount of $1,295,000 for proposed systemic pedestrian improvement projects. And resolution number 1344-0824. A resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the city manager to accept grant federal funds in the amount of $679,000 for proposed railway line removal projects. And we have minutes for the business meeting of July 16th, 2024, study session of July 23rd, 2024, business meeting of August 6th, 2024, and study session of August 13th, 2024.
Thank you, Donna.
You're
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Mr. Mayor, move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
The motion is second to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Council invites the public to give comments on matters of city business. Comments shall be made to the entire council and not individual council members. Please refrain from any personal or disrespectful remarks that create disruption of the meeting. Unreasonable disruptive conduct continues will be asked to leave the meeting. Donna, do anyone have general public comment tonight?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker is Susan Kirchhoff.
Hi, Mayor, City Council members, Susan Kirchhoff with the Youth Connection. I just wanted to give a quick rundown. I finally was able to do an annual report for 2023, and it has some wonderful news and things that we were able to accomplish. So I wanted to kind of share positive and good news. So in 2023, our organization continued to provide the essential services and support to our at-risk and homeless youth. Those are individuals that are 12 to 24 years old. Our commitment to improve lives and creating opportunities for those we serve has remained unwavering in the 7 years that we've been in business. In the drop-in center for over 2023, we averaged about 139 individual unique bodies coming through our door. Our low number was in February with 112. Our high number in August 2023, we had 147 individual bodies. As I shared last time I was speaking, July of 2023, we had 396 bodies come through our building. July of 2024, we had 909 bodies come through our building. And of those 999, or 909, it represented 144 unique individuals. Our clothing and meal closets, in our meals, we gave out 1,872 meals. That's us providing meals every day for young people that walk in our door. We try to make it a homemade meal. We had 936 visits in our clothing and hygiene closet. Housing support wise, we served and housed 98 individuals. Of the individuals we signed up in our program, we had 119 that were 18 and above, and 34 of those were under 18. We prevented 29 people from becoming unhoused through our eviction prevention program. And demographically wise, we actually hit really good markers. We had 59% as white, 1.5 as Black, 7.7 as Native American, and 28.75 as our Hispanic population, which tells us that we really have to increase what we're doing to serve our young people that are Hispanic. As we look ahead, we're excited to look into 2025. As you all know, we're this close to getting our remodel done. We're hoping that we can continue to impact the lives of our young people to prevent them from becoming chronic homeless. That's our whole plan. And we know that as a community, we can work together to solve this homeless problem, because we need to remember that all of our people that are out there that are unhoused are still humans, and they deserve the respect that each of us as humans have. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dean Jewett.
Good evening, Dean Dewitt, lifelong Shelton citizen. I just got the journal here, and on the front page, we know where we have problems and we're working on it. Eric Anisco, Shelton Mayor. How long does it take? 3 years, 5 years, 7 years? Where are we at with this? Something that I was talking about 4 years ago. We're still in the same place. We can't arrest our way out of the situation. Mark Ziegler, Shelton City Manager. So if there's an individual that's an alcoholic or an addict, are they of rational thought? Do they have a clear mind? You don't know how many people that I've chatted with that their saving grace was being incarcerated. Why? Because they were able to go into the jail with a clouded head, come back out with a clear head, and make some good life-changing situation and decisions that allowed them to become a positive citizen in our community. So yes, you can. So I disagree. My wife and I put out a flyer. So there was some confusion apparently by individuals. They thought that it was a city flyer. Eric Anisco told the Journal. Of course it wasn't a city flyer. The city doesn't actually go out and push that stuff forward so that everybody knows what's going on. If they're going to do something, they keep it really quiet and they don't blast it out unless it's something like the art walk. But if it has to do with Brewer Park or a homeless situation or one of our parks, or it's a negative thing, well, then it's pretty much on the down low and you have to find out on yourself. We know where we have problems and we're working on it. I already talked about that. I know that there's a frustration, Mark said, whatever the solution, it has to be planned. It has to be concentrated. It has to be equitable and lawful. Well, the Supreme Court just passed a law, didn't they? Overturning Roe or overturning Martin and Boise. So Aberdeen had a no lay lie law and it was challenged and it was upheld. So if we have that, why can't we go forward with it? I know that there's Spokane's underneath the lawsuit from the ACLU. I know that Spokane is, but that doesn't mean that we don't do anything. Okay, I mean, it's gotten worse. There's vans that have been running around town for years. The negative impact is ridiculous. Just in the last 2 weeks, we've had at least a half a dozen people urinating in our parking lot, trespassing, damaging. We have Holly Calhoun that's got an excellent business in town, and she ran into all kinds of grief just trying to get a car removed from a gentleman that was up on top of her awning. I mean, where are we at with this? Come on, guys, wake up.
That's all we have in person, but we have 2 people on Zoom. And our first comment is from Colleen Carmichael.
Good evening, Mayor Inesco, Deputy Mayor Sherman, and fellow council members. I'm Colleen Carmichael, Executive Director of New Horizon Communities. What can we do to create an effective plan to end homelessness? First, partner with the Center. The Center is a mission-driven division of the National Alliance to End Homelessness that helps cities, counties, states, and nonprofits move more quickly toward an end to homelessness. It does this by working with them and with people experiencing homelessness to implement evidence-based best practices. That can be found at www.endhomelessness.org. Second, listen to the homeless. This is a quote. I was working on my associate's degree while living with my mother, and we lost our home of 15 years. She is a veteran who has been struggling with mental health issues. When we lost our home, we had to scramble and figure out what to do to survive. We ended up sleeping in our car. Number 3, build housing of any kind. How can we do this? Government can pay developers to build for the middle income earners. State legislators and housing agencies can increase developer subsidies for housing at all price levels. Legislators can tack on extra incentives for workforce housing for the middle class, including a law that decreases property taxes on new projects for below market rate housing. They can raise the income limit to live in the housing so households making 120% of their area median income can qualify. We can also pass a sales tax to help pay for much needed housing services. Again, listening to the homeless. Quote, I was able to get into an apartment. I signed up for about 15 buildings through their help. They were always sending you 3 hours away from the metropolitan area. And I'm like, both my jobs are here. I'm not going to drive 3 hours one way to my 2 jobs. Number 5, acknowledge there's a mental health crisis in every city of the United States. 1 in 5 adults experience mental health illness each year. 1 in 6 children aged 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. By age 14, 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins. And suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34. Lastly, listen to the homeless. Another quote, we lost our home in a forest fire. Trying to find a place nearby was virtually impossible, as there were 2,300 other families trying to do the same thing. We moved from one temporary situation to another, slept in my car, stayed with friends. I'm running out of situations to be able to do that. Homelessness is about poverty, housing, and a lack of understanding about mental health and substance use. We can end it when we choose to address the facts that cause it instead of choosing to listen to the fear that creates it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dave Redman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Dave Redman. I'm a retired Army officer and as well as the program supervisor at the Shelton Veterans Village. According to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, Housing First is a proven model for addressing homelessness that prioritizes access to permanent, stable housing linked with services as needed. Housing First recognizes that stable housing is a prerequisite for effectively improving quality of life. Once stably housed, individuals are better able to take advantage of improving quality of life and wraparound services to help support housing stability, employment, and recovery. Without stable housing, attaining these goals becomes more difficult. Because federal resources to address homelessness are scarce, it is critical that communities use these resources effectively to serve as many people as possible by investing in approaches like Housing First that have proven to be the most successful in getting people off the streets and into housing. During the course of the past 10 months since opening our doors, we've had the privilege of providing homes for 22 veterans, giving them a warm and dry place to shelter and to use as a base to begin rebuilding their lives. In that time, 9 of the veterans we have housed have rejoined the workforce. One is married and secured an apartment for his new bride and himself, while others have reconnected with estranged family. Our residents that have rejoined the workforce hold stable jobs, spend their money locally with Shelton businesses, and they have become a positive part of the community. This program works. Every day I come to work and I see firsthand the benefits of supported living for homeless veterans. Providing them a hand up instead of a handout has enabled them to accomplish things that many thought were not possible for them to accomplish as individuals. The support of the city and the county have directly contributed to the success of this and so many other programs. And with your understanding, I'd like to spend just a few moments to cite a couple of statistics from the Mason County reports. According to the profile on homelessness in Mason County in the fiscal year of 2023, Mason County emergency shelters assisted 755 families with emergency housing, of which 170 gained housing, 38 families stayed in transitional housing with 33 families housed. Other emergency programs like the HEN, Housing Emergency Needs, have helped 235 individuals with critical needs, and the Crossroads facility serviced 221 families in their time of need. The programs around Mason County and the city of Shelton are staffed by an amazing group of people who come in every day and give their all. And I look forward to seeing this same report next year, knowing that our little village up on the hill plays a part in the numbers and the people that they represent. Each person with stable housing cycles in and out of emergency services and departments less often, has fewer inpatient hospital stays, and requires less use of psychiatric centers, detoxification programs, and jails, resulting in lower public costs and better health outcomes for individuals. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Mayor.
We have several presentations this evening. Our first LTAC report from Liz Altwell.
Hello. I have our second quarter report of for the museum. And then following that, I have the car show report too. So for the second quarter, we've had 647 visitors. Of those, 93 were out of state and 6 were international. One example is that we had a family from Finland who were on their way around the peninsula in a motorhome. And so they decided it was too hot to go to Mount Rainier, so they came to the Olympic Park instead. So after we gave them a map and showed them, the good places to stop, then we ended up helping them find lodging in Seattle, and because they had a couple of days before their flight. So, it's really a rewarding job. I love that part, helping the people. So next slide, please. So on our Google ratings, we've had 1,600 users. I never understand why there's that spike. You know, it's like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but there it is, every month or every quarter. Average engagement is 2.5 minutes on our website. And probably aside from the homepage, most people were looking at the 2024 annual car show. Next slide, please. For Square, which is also part of, so there's the Google and then there's Square, which is actually the people that run our website. So we had 1,400 unique visits. We've been selling a lot of books. One thing that didn't make it into my report was that we had an article in the Seattle Times about the artist colony in Hood Canal, on Hood Canal. And so that was fun. I've never been quoted in the Times before, and probably, hopefully never will again. But anyway, but we've sold multiple books. Mike Fredson's Artist Colony book has been popular because of that. And then next slide, please. Facebook. So we've reached 23,000 people. Maybe it's the same 1,000 looking multiple times. But our top, even when I printed this so that I didn't have to read that, I still can't read it. It's so small. But we had 12,000 reach for a walking tour, historic walking tour that Mike Fredson again did. So, and then 106 reactions for that one. Next slide, please. We received a grant, a community accelerator grant, which is through the Paul Allen Family Foundation, which really helps kind of fill in a lot of those holes in our budget. I think it was $8,500, which for us is a huge amount. Next slide, please. Oh, so are there any questions about the museum part of this? One thing I wanted to say too is that, you know, we had 600 and some last quarter. In July and August, we had over 800 people come through the museum. Some of that is tied to downtown events, which is fabulous because we get so many people who say, "Oh, I've lived here 20 years and I've never been in." But we also just like randomly will have 25 people come in during a day. And then, you know, maybe the next day we only have 6, but still, it's all very rewarding. We have the Cruising Through Time car show, which happened June 30th. So segue right into this one. It was the second year that we partnered with the Downtown Merchants Association, which is extremely helpful because all of our car club people retired a few years ago during the pandemic. This year's car show brought in over 300 classic cars, of which 267 were actually registered. Some people just parked. In 2023, there were 146 cars registered. So that was a great improvement. We had thousands of spectators down in town on a Sunday, which is a great, you know, normally it's not always that busy on a Sunday. Of the registered participants, 33 were from distances greater than 50 miles. And then I just kind of guess randomly that probably about half of those people are staying in commercial lodging. We advertised for the car show. Oh, and then 186 cars were from Mason County. Advertising for the car show was through the Yellow Book, which is a car show thing, I guess, and social media, both by the Downtown Merchants and then by our Facebook page and our website. We had expenses that were a little over $4,700 and total revenue of about $10,000, which we will, profits will be equally split between the museum and the Downtown Merchants Association. So that's that. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a presentation for the Department of Ecology to present award for a wastewater treatment plant. Employees.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Dinus Kleinberg. I'm in the Department of Ecology. I'm an engineer there, and I am in the water quality group that oversees municipal operations. Every year, the Department of Ecology awards or sends out awards to treatment plants that have basically had a perfect year. That being there was no violations or anything like that of their permits. So this year we have awards to both the Shelton wastewater treatment plant and the Shelton water reclamation facility.
I'm the superintendent of wastewater for Shelton, Bern Armstrong, but these awards are the work from our crews in the field. They're the ones when it's pouring down rain, everybody's at home, that they all have to come in, make sure that everything is running correctly at the treatment plant. On call, work weekends, but this is really a testament to their work. So, thank you.
Good job, guys.
Hey, Brent, if you don't mind having guys come up, let's get a picture with the award and get all of you guys for posterity there. Okay, you don't mind? Okay. Yeah, whatever works, somewhere in there. Yeah, just play one on TV. So this is an award that City of Shelton has received a number of times, and it's because of the hard work of these guys every day, making sure that we're meeting the standards set by the state that a lot of treatment plants don't meet, frankly. We can be quite proud of that. It's a duty to our ratepayers and our customers and the environment and our partners out in our community. And we've seen some of the improvements by opening further shellfish grounds in Oakland Bay because of the work that's been put into that, into particularly the main wastewater treatment plant. So it's a significant effort from those individuals sitting in the back of the room. We don't take the opportunity to thank them very often, especially publicly. I'm sure they really enjoy being here tonight at the council meeting, but again, want to say thank you to all of them.
Absolutely, we appreciate all your work, and I think I've been here 7 years now. I believe we've seen 4 or 5 in my 7 years, and great work for you guys on that. You guys come to us and you say we want UV lights to be redundant. You know, you want a new generator to make sure that that thing goes off in the middle of the night. So, you know, in case of the problem, and we appreciate you guys coming to us and telling us what you need and getting that done so everybody's safe, shellfish is safe, and the water's more open, and hopefully we'll continue to do this down the road and get more stuff done. So, anybody have any comments or questions? Great job, guys. Thank you. All right. Okay, we're recessing out of a regular meeting of the public hearing. We have an ordinance related to building height limits. Development Director Jay Hill has details for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. So the first ordinance that we'll be discussing tonight is one that was suggested by council at a study session last year and reviewed again at a study session just back in August. And that was the intent of increasing the viability of development in certain parts of the city, most of the city, by removing building height limits. And we talked about different options at the time. And what we came up with was essentially removing it from all zones. I will say that it does leave height limits in place in the airport industrial zone and around the flight contours around the airport. So we don't have that as a, you know, there won't be any obstructions or hazards to air traffic. This doesn't change height limits for wireless facilities, freestanding signs, accessory uses. Accessory uses is important because we make a lot of provisions that they can be right up on somebody's property line in some cases, or they're given a little bit more flexibility because a lot of times they're smaller, they're not as tall, they're whatnot. We don't want somebody putting a, essentially an unlimited height structure, right on somebody's backyard property line and whatnot. But the main structures on the properties will still have to comply with the setbacks, required yards, lot coverage, things like that. And there's still, in each zoning district, there are supplementary regulations about some certain things, but generally speaking, as you can see in looking through the attached ordinance to, it essentially just says building height, none across the board, except where in those supplementary regulations it's allowed. There had been previous discussion, I think at the original study session with the previous council, just about how do we know that this isn't going to cause unlimited height buildings like in the residential neighborhood, somebody building a 20-story building or something. And to be completely honest, the market economics just really aren't there. If we ever did get to a point where that was feasible and financially practical, the city would be in a really good financial situation because it means our land values are really, increased to the point where the market can support that. Right now, we imagine this will probably net some 3- and 4-story uses on appropriately sized parcels throughout the residential and downtown zones. And hopefully even in the downtown area, we might even see more in like the 5th story. But when you go over the 5th story, then you start having to go into all steel construction. There's some ways to get to like a 5/2 where it's wood over concrete, but typically you start going to the steel construction, and there's some other kinds of we'll say limiting factors that make it hard to get to that. And so even in places where the height limits are set at like 115 feet or something like that, you usually don't see them hit. Just because, again, the market has to support the cost of construction, the materials used. And then we have other kinds of things like parking requirements, setbacks, allowed and permitted uses, so on and so on, that kind of like push back on that. So what this really does is it signals that we're open to innovative projects, we're open to investment, and it's still with the other regulations that we have in place, going to be compatible with the scale of existing lots and development within our city. So the ordinance was pretty long, just a lot of strike throughs and referencing back to the table. A lot of our development metrics, including our yard standards, height, lot coverage, et cetera, are all in a table in 20.06.030A of the municipal code. And so what we did very simply through the remainder of the municipal code was just refer everything back to the table. So at any point in the future, if we decide, maybe this didn't work, we just change it in the table. We don't have to go back through and change it in each individual place and whatnot. So it's a little bit of a cleaner way to administer our code. So that's all I have for kind of prepared comments, but I'm happy to answer any questions y'all have about what we're proposing to do here.
Okay, Donna, anyone sign up for public testimony on this?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, may we read ordinance number 2021-0824.
Ordinance number 2021-0824. An ordinance of the city of Shelton, Washington, amending Title 20 of the Shelton Municipal Code for the purpose of abolishing building height limits.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we place ordinance number 2021-0824 on the action agenda at the November 5th, 2024 regular council meeting.
All right, comments or questions? Okay. Yeah.
If I may add, the one thing I forgot to mention in my original comments, this does require 60-day review by the Department of Commerce. And that's why it has to go in November, because they have statutory 60 days to review the ordinance for any comments. We rarely, if ever, get comments back. But that's their right for all development regulations. So that's why it's recommended for the November 5th meeting. So thank you.
Any comments or questions? Some of the benefits of this would be like apartment building, the apartment down below, maybe if there wasn't, the lot wasn't big enough for parking. They could have like 3-story apartment parking, and also could be for office buildings, and also for a downtown, if we have a vacant lot, you know, want some density, we have retail on the bottom, we could have, retail on the bottom, we could have, residential on top, so like, kind of like benefits.
And also with commercial development, as you mentioned, we had a potential hotel, about a year and a half ago now. And they came in, they worked their site to get it right under our 35-foot height limit. But this might allow for like a fourth story, which might help with development, or you know, allows for more architectural projection and things like that make commercial development a little more attractive. So you're not just getting the flat top on all the buildings. So there's some other benefits to raising the height limit as well.
It'd be great to get a local hotel and not have to have somebody look further housing over in Seattle for somebody for the weekend. So.
Will they still need granite camera for this? They want to go 4-story.
No.
No.
By right.
Any other questions? Motion and second to place ordinance number 2021. That's 0824 on the action agenda. November 5th. Regular council meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed.
Mr. Mayor, are you getting Councilmember Sept on video? To make sure that we're not losing.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Opposed? Motion carries. The public hearing is closed. Another public hearing. Yes. Jay has another item regarding grant funds.
We're gonna go to shopping carts. Number 2 under business agenda.
And then I'm here all night. So Mayor and Council, thank you. This was the result of a couple of different study sessions and some outreach to some retailers in town. Council had expressed the desire to regulate shopping carts throughout our community. The general consensus, you know, amongst staff and the public is just with them leaving the premises at a lot of our retailers, especially our downtown ones. They become entrapped in ravines, parks, in the creek. I mean, we just our code enforcement officer alone has probably removed 40 carts in the last year, plus our public works and park staff, probably an equivalent number, and they're just going in the dumpster, and it's a waste, not to mention a nuisance and helping facilitate some hazards and possibly some crime as well. So we looked at what a lot of other communities were doing, found that by and large, Issaquah had probably the most comprehensive set of regulations. Theirs was 20-something pages. We pared ours down significantly from what they had selected, but also, you know, theirs have been tested and worked. And so we proceeded with some of the concepts that they had used. And at our August 13th study session, we took a look at that again and shrank some of it down and put some bookends around fees and policies. And this is what we have in front of you today. And so one thing to note is that we had discussed this ordinance would be approved now with an effective date at the end of the year. And that's to give our retail operators some time to adjust their operations and come up with a plan for how they want to retain their carts on site. The council had discussions about wanting to have that flexibility, that it not just be a prescribed measure, but that there be alternatives, or if they come up with something that's not on our suggested list of items, that there is the flexibility that they can come to us with a suggestion as well. And so with that, just very general overview of the regulations. They are required to provide security measures, which is a defined term within the ordinance. And that means anything from electronically activated self-braking wheels to some sort of, you know, personnel on site. There's a lot of different options that they could take. They are required to contain carts on their property and retrieve them if they leave the property. They are required to post the signage that is identified in the state law, RCW 9856. And so by putting that sign on there and making it a requirement of the city to have it there, right now it's just if the cart has the sign and someone removes the cart, it becomes a misdemeanor. Now the sign must be on there. And so by proxy, if the cart is gone, it's misdemeanor. And then there was, again, just removal and collection by the city. We may, at our discretion, remove the carts. We'll notify them if the carts don't have the required signage. We don't know who to get a hold of to return them. They can just be disposed of as we see fit. There's a flat fee of $100 per cart if the city is the one who collects that the cart, but there's no obligation on the city to be the cart service for any of these businesses. And then finally, just if a cart is found off of the premises, it's a rebuttable presumption that the cart was removed or was taken by someone from someone who removed it. So anyway, it makes it stolen property essentially. So someone removing the cart would be guilty of a misdemeanor, and someone who did not remove the cart but is in possession of the cart is guilty of possession of stolen property, which is a gross misdemeanor. So basically, if you're not on the site of a retailer and you have a cart, you are committing a crime in the city of Shelton and other cities that have adopted this as a measure. That being said, we've also identified that this is kind of more of a secondary offense. We're not going to be just rolling around looking for people who are pushing carts and whatnot, but if they have accumulated it along with some other offenses, this is a secondary offense for a prosecution. So, and again, the ordinance takes effect January 1st of next year. So happy to answer any questions about ordinance 2022-824.
Reading ordinance number 2022-0824.
Do you want to know if there's public testimony first, Mr. Mayor? There is not. Yes. Ordinance number 2022-0824. An ordinance of the city of Shelton, Washington, adding chapter 8.30 to the Shelton Municipal Code relating to the regulation of shopping carts.
Thank you, Don. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we place ordinance number 2022-0824 on the action agenda at the September 17th, 2024 regular council meeting.
So, comments or questions?
Sure. One of our allowed processes for securing carts using a shopping cart collection service. I know every time we brought this up, the last two times, there's been some concern about what that might look like. When I was digging into it, there's nothing around here that I can find online where there's actually an example of that sort of service in Washington State. I found two metropolitan areas in California. Washington State doesn't have any laws that govern how those would operate, as far as I can tell. California does. They have codes on what sort of records need to be maintained and what sort of signage needs to be on the vehicle. Right now, the language of our this language is really open so that at any time we can add in any sort of thing that I believe you decide fits the needs or is suitable to meet these requirements. And I was curious if it was reasonable for us to remove the shopping cart retrieval service, just because it's sort of theoretical. It's not something that exists right now. And if it does come to pass in the future where there's laws that govern it, or there's examples of how it can be used in other communities, we could bring it in. But right now, we cannot open that up. I don't know how everybody else feels.
Put it in like as available. Just change the verbiage to that. Because now that it's out there, I mean, it's bound to happen.
How quickly could we repeal this whole resolution if we don't like it, how it's being? Or that service.
Same process you're hearing tonight. It would, yeah. It
So
would
we
come
take several-
before the council as a briefing and then action.
And then would it take 60 days or something like that? Or-
No,
No,
this isn't
right.
this isn't considered development regulation or commerce's purview.
And we can always make an amendment to it at any council meeting as well in the near future. Like,
Again, following the same kind of process to amend the municipal code.
so it would take longer for us to do it if we waited, but if we did it earlier, we could nip in the bud right here, but I don't know if we're ready to make a amendment at this point. Are you, Tom?
I don't know, I mean, I guess part of the other another issue is problem is there's no teeth. So if somebody chooses to contract somebody to pick up their carts, as long as we're not picking them up off the street, they're still not either way. So I don't know that it really makes much of a difference. It was just a comment.
And the cart patrol could be the store itself, right? The retrieval could be the stores. I don't know, Jay, in your research, I don't know if there's any retailers that are continuing to process such.
Even in our community, we were told at least 2 of them are going out and, you know, when they've got somebody on shift with a truck and some time, they go pick them up themselves. So, but I think maybe the door is left open. You know, if everybody starts borrowing off of someone else's ordinances and maybe they're trying to leave the door open for, you know, some enterprising individuals to take this on so it doesn't become a city liability. And so, I mean, we could remove it and just, it could be inherent under the, you know, any other method as, you know, deemed by the director, or it could be, we leave it in with, you know, as available, or, I mean, I didn't hear anything up there that didn't sound appropriate. It's, you know, whatever flavor the council would choose. So I'm okay getting it any way.
Chat, you have anything?
Did you ask my opinion? I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm in favor of the shopping cart ordinance. I'm fine with it.
I have some questions. So when we first, you just mentioned it again, there's some options here. When we first started talking about this, there was options, but now it looks to me like it's kind of a full meal deal. So if they put their electronic activated self-braking wheels on, they're still responsible if these cars somehow get off the lot, even though that they've done what we've asked them to do, and they've locked these wheels out. So they still are held for going after these carts, correct?
Yes.
And so it's not an option. This is the full meal package, everything on here.
They must make an attempt to contain and they must retrieve. And if they don't, there's a fee. So, or a fine.
Okay. So we're not asking them to go out and flip people's stuff off the sidewalk and take the cars back.
No, and they could probably run into some civil rights issues if they started doing that themselves.
We're asking them to retrieve their carts, so it'd be probably very clear that they can't do that.
That's incorrect.
So, okay. I absolutely believe that they need to lock these wheels. I absolutely believe it. I think that's a huge investment for these grocery stores. I'm not sure if we keep penalizing them for doing what we asked them to do, lock the wheels, they somehow get off the lot, and then charge them $100. You know, that's what I'm not comfortable with.
In the discussion about the $100, it was because there's our staff time incurred in collecting, holding, and returning the carts, and so we're just trying to have some amount of cost recovery. But again, that's if the council didn't feel that way, we could remove the fine. We do need some kind of a fine or fee for violation of this section of the code. Otherwise, it defaults to an infraction, and an infraction is a $514 charge and a civil violation. So we don't want it to do that. There needs to be some penalty or some declaration, but what that is or how that's worded, we can be creative if that's the desire of the council.
Would it make sense to have a different fine or fee in mind for people who have not complied with the code at all versus those who just cover our costs for picking up a cart?
We could do that. That seems reasonable. Yeah. Yeah, like one for it got off the lot. It still took us some time to pick it up. And then there's one for you didn't do anything and it took us. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Yeah.
So, you need an amendment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can do that tonight, or we can take feedback and draft this and bring it back for for action, you know, based on this, based on the feedback, or you can certainly provide an amendment to the ordinance.
Well, I guess it's not there yet, because some more fine makes sense. I'm not sure if we all want to make it the infraction level, or if it needs to be something slightly more like influences action without being overly expensive. I don't know.
How can we get there? And so this is our starting point, this is our jumping point, fixing a problem.
Ideally, we put this out there and then the local big three go out there and do it the right thing and we get this cleared up and it just works out. So if we have to cross a bunch of different bridges as we come, you know, if all of a sudden somebody racks up a few grand in cart fees and we're like, oh, okay, this didn't work out, then, you know, we have a different conversation. But we gotta start somewhere, so I think this is a good starting point.
Correct, I absolutely agree with that, start somewhere, I think we're starting everywhere. I mean, you know, we're asking certain stores to spend $50,000 on locking mechanisms, and some stores spend $10,000 to $20,000 on locking mechanisms, and then we're saying, okay, if your carts do get off the property, we're gonna charge you again. I'm not sure that's quite fair to our businesses that are, you know,
I mean, we could set it up so that, you know, fees can be waived if reasonable effort was made. As opposed to where, you know, if you're not doing anything, like you said, if you're just letting it all go and, you know, all your carts are all over town all the time, that's something else altogether, but I mean, just like anything else, it's gonna be a case by case basis, I would imagine.
And to that, we did in our original version that we brought to you, at the last study session, have something like that in there, that if there hadn't been a collection within, I think, 30 or 60 days or something like that. There was a provision like what you're talking about. Our city attorney, while she was reviewing this, she was trying to shorten it and get some things out of there to make it a little more readable and impactful. And she took that part out, but I mean, that could easily go back in. There wasn't anything wrong with that.
We want to make sure that it removes some discretion by staff, right? So we're applying this uniformly and fairly. So a reasonable effort is bad, poor language within the ordinance. I know that's not exactly what you meant, but just for clarification, it really needs to be black and white, so staff can make these decisions and enforce this uniformly.
And I think one of the main reasons she pulled that too was then now we have to start tracking, well, whose cards and when did we get them in order to give them the, you know, the waiver for the, you know, we had the end within 30 days, how many cards and so on. By just taking that and just making it the $100 fee, she was saying, you know, this is just faster. And so I could appreciate that as well. So, and I'm not hurt if you guys want to make any change. This is your ordinance. I'm here to put it together for you guys. So, you know, playing with the fees or timelines or things like that, I'm totally fine with that.
Well, it sounds like the only change we're gonna have you come back with is going to be, the scale is gonna be if they actually have done one of these or some of these, correct? Like if they lock the wheels, we're gonna find, looking at maybe a lesser fine if their cart's off property, that would. The
$100 is to recover our costs. I think we should still recover our costs, so maybe the number in my head is like a $200 fine if they don't have signage, if they don't have demonstrated costs or demonstrated efforts to have somebody on staff retrieving cards or a retrieval service, and we're all good with that, or the locking mechanism. So if they haven't complied, maybe push the map.
Again, we're looking at all of this as one ordinance, so they have to block the wheel, they have to retrieve the cards, they have to dedicate personnel, they have to have other measures by their director.
They can select one of those under D.
It's including but not limited to, and then and or, so they could do one, they could do all of them if they wanted.
Sure.
And they
Take it back now where I'm more okay then, because I, under the impression that we wanted them to put electronic locking wheels on there, that was the main thing. So we're not giving that, that's just a choice. So basically, I don't know if we're gonna solve the problem. Property. I think.
So I guess we just jumped from 050, 8.3050 to back up to 8.30.010. And we've been back and forth a couple times. Maybe we can wrap up one and then go to the next. So let's, if you don't mind, if we'll stay at 8.30.010 and the security measures. If there's direction for staff to refine that or move forward, we're happy to take.
Just that gives you more than 6 options there, so, you know, those kind of stuff. It was the.
What we on?
So this is the security measures.
Yeah.
In
Part B.
8.30.010 D, security measures. The physical impediments or methods to prevent removal of shopping carts from the premises of the retail establishment, including but not limited to, and then there's the 6 choices essentially. And so, Mr. Mayor, your comments were that you would like to see essentially one measure, security measure, which is locking.
I would definitely like to see the security measure, the self-braking wheel be mandatory. I mean, that's how you really stop them from leaving the property. I mean, other than that, everything else down below, they're just gonna leave the property and we're gonna just be chasing carts, writing fines and chasing carts to write fines. I mean, this electronic penalty wheel keeps them on the property. I mean, for the most part, I tested one in the Olympic, I got 45 yards away from Target and it locked. So I think really.
But retailers, smaller retailers too, that's, well, I know, but it's. I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, polls and things like that, they have that option. So that smaller retailers aren't spending thousands and thousands, they can't afford on it, but they're still putting something in place to try to stop the issue. So whether it be polls or locked up or whatever, that's still going to hopefully prevent it from, right.
Polls are great, because they can't go outside.
Right.
So that, I mean, they're not leaving property there.
Right,
So.
there's other options. So there's other options than just the locking wheels, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think this is where you have to put your debit card in to retrieve your cart. Then when you return it, it gives you your money back on your card. If you do not return your cart, it charges you per day. So that's an option too. So by saying they just have to lock wheels, you just took away those extra options.
Well, that's not, I've never heard of that, but that sounds great.
I've used it before.
That could be presented as one of the other measures. Yeah.
So by saying you can only do this, you're taking away those other options that they might have.
Curious if we could write it in a way that we say for bigger stores. For the bigger stores, like people with over 100 carts, maybe locking wheels or other options that are allowed by the director. And in that sense, they can present that sort of, I guess, if we break it out, it might be. All the decision back to Jay. So, but I get it. There's 3 big retailers in town that are a little bit of a different game than a lot of the other people.
Currently,
Correct.
certainly hope more are on the way. In 060 of this, there is the exemption section, which is anyone providing 15 or fewer carts or businesses less than 3,000 square feet of retail area. So that does protect some smaller businesses, but anybody slightly larger than that or providing more carts or whatnot would be you know, subject to the terms of this chapter. So.
I think still waiting for, I guess, majority on whether the security measures are okay as written, or you want to see some edits moving forward.
I'm okay with this, good starting point, I think. I'll get going forward.
I'm okay with that section.
Forward. Move forward. No objections. Yeah, forward looking forward.
Now, if you still want them to come back, or you want to go ahead and vote tonight.
But so, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, we have the fines and the fees, sorry, 8.3050 to discuss further. Okay, sorry. I just didn't want us to move to action before we had the opportunity to discuss this again and make sure we had clear direction from council.
Yeah, this one for me, I just think it makes sense to incentivize action and following and complying with the ordinance by providing a different fee structure for people who haven't complied with those who have. Whether that is providing a larger fee in general, just for those that haven't complied and not charging as much for those who haven't complied, so that we can still, we're not looking for necessarily a revenue source, just put more of the cost for recovering carts on people who haven't complied, or I don't know, I think there should be something different for people who aren't complying with the rules than for people who are. I move to change the fee structure at 8.30.050 from 100 to 200, depending upon the structure. And can we clean that up and come back next week? Or is there a second, or I don't know how we do this? I'm just motioning that we change the fee structure per council member Gilmore's suggestion.
Can I get some clarification on that before the second? Is that okay?
Well, there's a motion on the floor, so that's an amended motion for the ordinance, or you can simply vote against the motion and provide us direction to come back with a revised ordinance at the next meeting, if that's.
Wait, motion, we're not second yet.
Oh, excuse, the original motion was seconded. Yeah.
By George.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so now there's almost a second, so what then?
There's a motion and a second for, as presented, yes, without an amendment, sorry for interrupting.
There's a motion and a second to approve, but there's a motion and a second now with an amendment.
There's a motion for amending,
Yes.
exactly.
Okay, so the motion is second to amend the ordinance to raise the fee $200 based on, what did you say, the based on compliance? Compliance? That sound right?
As I understand the discussion, it was $100 fee for cost recovery if they have complied, and 200 if they didn't comply and we had to collect. Is that?
With the other options.
That was as I understood. That was
the intent.
That was my understanding. Also.
Okay, motion is second to amend, where are we, number 2022-0824 to raise the fee to 200 for non-compliance per card and keep the $100 fee for people who comply. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have the second motion.
Did we catch Councilmember Sept? Okay, good.
I was in favor.
Make sure.
So now we have the original motion. So we're ready for that?
Yeah, we had a motion, second.
We have a motion and a second, for ordinance number 2022-0824 on the acting limit. September 17th, regular council meeting for consideration. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. So it's that, right?
So, yeah, correct. Question mark, right? We just approved an amended ordinance, right? Correct. The main motion, if you do not want to move that language forward, you should vote nay. If you vote yes, you're moving forward essentially both portion or both versions of this ordinance. Correct. So if you want the amended version of the ordinance, yay. If you want the original version of if you don't want the original version of the ordinance, you vote nay against that. That's the intent, correct?
Or they could withdraw the
Or withdraw the motion.
Withdraw the
Absolutely
original
right.
motion.
So withdraw which one?
And
Withdraw the original.
Councilmember Gutierrez made the original motion.
I withdraw the original motion.
Okay. So the amended motion.
The amended motion.
Great.
Who's seconding?
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion to withdraw the main motion.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. I think that's the intent, correct? Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry, guys, we don't get these very often.
And we want to move forward tonight, correct?
When we do, they're always.
It's great. Good discussion. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Public hearings. Go to item J, a resolution to accept grant.
Thank you. So this one, I have two that I'm going to share with you tonight. They're both for the main project. So as I've briefed a couple times over the summer, we've been hard at work with one of our on-call engineering consultants to basically figure out how to remove all of the rails from the old Simpson Timber Railroad and replace that with a gravel surface. It's currently being used as a trail. People are walking and whatnot. It's kind of a hazard. It's also difficult for us to get out and do maintenance and cleanups and move people along if people have started staying there a little too long, so on and so on. At the very least, we need to get the rails and the rail ties up and get it to a more passable surface. And so that's going to hopefully be occurring. We'll be going out to bid within the next couple of weeks for that, and hopefully have that interim kind of gravel trail by the end of the year, hopefully. That includes a little bit safer, definitely safer bridge crossing at Goldsboro Creek. Right now, the old Simpson Rail Bridge is open to below. A very thin person could probably. I couldn't. My daughter could. Anyway, so we're gonna put a decking over that. So that's all occurring separately. What would happen after that, what's going to happen hopefully concurrently, is that we start trying to do an invitation to bid for design of a more complete trail. So the final version is what we would call it, a paved trail with benches and lights and garbage cans and public art and a real, kind of Burt Gilman kind of experience, a bike trail through town. And as we talked about before, there's the portion that runs along the Simpson rail alignment. And then there was a second portion that we identified, and that'll be the next grant that we talk about, which would run from Neyland Park up to the marina. And we don't have a route for that yet, but that's what the part of the grant funding would be for. So this first grant can be used for the entirety of the rail trail. It can be used all the way from US 101 to the marina. So going through all the way out. And this is for final design, construction drawings and specs and all that kind of stuff for what the final trail would look like. That way, when construction money is available, we have plans, we're ready to go. It's plug and play. The next grant that I'll talk about is for just the second phase from Neyland Park across Goldsboro Creek somehow out to the marina. And that, as part of the design and planning process, we'll figure out how it's going to get there. So this first award letter was secured by our legislative delegation and in the state supplemental appropriation budget. It's administered by the Washington State Department of Commerce. So we're saying we're accepting commerce funding, but really we owe a lot to our 35th delegation for bringing that home. So this is $199,820 that we'll use for design work, one or the full segment of the trail. And again, this will just be getting us ready for final design whenever we land the approximately $1.5 million that it costs to do the paving and all the improvements and the safety and all that kind of stuff. So with that, happy to answer any questions about this particular grant award.
Motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to place resolution number 1336-0624 on the consent agenda at the September 17th, 2024 council meeting.
Comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, trails have ranked the highest of projects within our Parks, Recreation, Open Space and Trails plan for probably the last 16 to 20 years. So happy that we're making some movement here with the project Jay talked about as well, to remove the rails, further movement to provide some of the amenities that our community has desired for many, many years through these planning processes. So this is an exciting step in the right direction.
Cool. I didn't hear a second. Did we have a second? We did have a second. Okay, now come to questions. I did have somebody ask me this weekend. So right now, the trail to the highway is going to be like a gravel or beauty bar kind of trail for now. And then when we do have the money to make that trail more permanent, is it going to be like gravel and like a little path, asphalt path or something, so they can actually ride bikes on one and they can jog on the other?
You can do it on both. It's the intent. It's a multimodal trail, probably 12 feet wide or something like that. Sorry to jump in there, but yeah.
what he said. Yeah, the plan is for a, long-term will be a paved, either asphalt or concrete. Again, we don't have a final design, but it'll be a paved multi-use trail. So bikes, scooters, skateboards, walkers,
Strollers,
joggers, strollers, dogs, horses, anyway, anything non-motorized essentially. And then, but the interim trail that you're talking about will just be 12-foot wide compacted gravel the whole length. And so, to the extent that it's, I was on the East Lake Sammamish Trail, which wasn't paved for years and years, and it was compacted gravel, and it was still very rideable as a bicyclist. So I think we'll get some good use out of this until we have the construction money.
And we'll have a public process with this planning and design work as well. So we'll get the feedback from the community. We have the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee and a number of local groups and citizens that'll have the opportunity to provide their feedback on what they want to see as an end product as well.
It's also important to note that the interim trail, our engineering estimate showed that there's about 450,000-ish of salvageable steel. The rails are worth actually quite a bit of money, and that actually pays for the bulk of the project. So we anticipate that the total cost to the city, including getting the bridge decking, including the full interim trail, would cost us 60,000 or less. And it depends on what the bids come back. It could be more, it could be less. The city of Woodinville actually made money on that project. They made 130,000 because their salvage value was high. So we don't know what it's going to turn out to be, but this is, we're going to be getting a great amenity for very low cost.
I'm excited. I like walking, but again, that the work's only going to cover the first phase 1 of the trail, not the blacktop or asphalt. It's going to be the gravel for a couple of years.
It's in our, the full trail project, both phase 1 and phase 2 are in the community and economic development strategy from the EDC. So that makes it eligible for some funding. It's in our capital improvement plan. So it's eligible for transportation credits. There's a lot of different ways we can start pooling money together to fund this project. And hopefully, we could make it work within the next 6 years. And that's kind of the long-term goal of some of that stuff, but no promises. Depends on cost of construction, availability of staff, and so on and so on. But
great. Would say anything?
I'm just an avid dog walker, so this trail is just amazing for the possibilities and for the health of our community as well. I know walking the dog for me an hour a day is worth 1,000 milligrams of metformin for diabetes. So there are real health benefits to having a walking trail in the community. And I know exciting with our Shelton Parks district and our blue zone and the development that's going on, that walking and making this community a walkable community is a vision that I've had for over 10 years, and that it's finally happening, falling into place. But it might take us another 10 years to get there. But it's a long process, but we're making incremental steps towards it. And it's walking my dog 10 years ago in Shelton downtown is a way different experience than walking my dog downtown now. There are way better streets, way better marked. People stop for you. You can make it all the way to the dog park. We have a dog park now that was new 10 years ago. So, there's a lot of things that are happening in Shelton that are very beneficial to the citizens, and that I'm very proud to be a part of making this trailway happen in my lifetime. So thanks very much for your hard work, and I hope we continue to do projects like this.
Else? We have motion and second, resolution number 1336-0624, the agenda, September 17th, council meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Yay, boy.
It rains and pours, right? All right, so this is another set of grant funds that we went out and got for the rail trail project. This is $275,000 awarded through WashDOT's Sandy Williams Connecting Communities programs. This was set up under the Climate Commitment Act, and they're trying to fund specifically communities that have pedestrian impacts related to state highways. And we have one state highway and one federal highway coming through town that kind of disrupt pedestrian flow. And so this 275,000 is for what we're calling the phase 2 design from Newland Park out to the marina. This part gets tricky because we have to figure out how to cross Goldsboro Creek. There's not a good existing pedestrian connection, so we've got to cross somewhere on one side of Front Street or the other. And then we have to get over, First Street, and then we have to get over to Front Street and follow Front Street up to about the pear orchard and then find our way through the pear orchard out to the marina. There's some older plans for a boardwalk through the pear orchard, and we'll see if as part of this project those can be renewed and revived if they meet standards. And then just trying to get all the way out to the marina. And the goal is that, you know, once we have this final complete trail, people will be able to get all the way through town, go past the art district, get downtown on their bikes or by walking or whatnot, get out to the water, see the water. There's not a lot of places in the community right now where you can actually even see Oakland Bay, much less get down to punch it. So this is really exciting. This 275,000 again is for construction, planning, and design. So we hope to have full design documents at the end of this process for whatever bridge crossing, whatever trail segments, et cetera, all the way out to the marina from Newland Park. There is, and I mentioned this in the staff report, there's an element of risk. So there's a ballot initiative right now to repeal the Climate Commitment Act. If that goes through, any unobligated funding gets pulled back. So we're going to try to get this spent as quickly as we can, knowing that November is just right around the corner. So, and again, construction funding hasn't been identified for this project, but we sincerely hope that by being in the CIP and the SEDS and a couple of other places that we'll be able to shake some more money loose to get this done.
Jay, you have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to place resolution number 1338-0624 on the consent agenda on September 17th, 2024 at the council.
Second.
How much question?
I think it's really impressive for that. We applied for 250,000, but we got 255. I mean, how often did you ask for money and they give you more?
I wasn't gonna say anything. They asked if we wanted more.
Yeah.
Yes, please, thank you.
That'd be great.
So what's that?
It's really important to get the study done so that we're ready to go if and when money comes our way. So thanks very much for your efforts in getting this grant.
I was just gonna ask what the timeline was because they do repeal the CCA then.
We would love to get an invitation to bid very soon. So our first priority is getting the invitation to bid for the rail removal and get that going. And once we have that launched, we can move right into getting an RFP. We want proposals from qualified firms that have done trail design. We want this to be kind of the jewel necklace of our town. I mean, this is going to be an opportunity to connect businesses, residences, schools, transit. So we want to get really good qualified proposals. So.
Very exciting. Great grants. And there's a lot of property there on those tracks. It'd be nice if they have some kind of maybe lease some retail space, you know, down there when we get that trail built, maybe food trucks or something like that, you know. Because there's a lot of really wide locations.
There's gonna be some opportunities there when we get through the design process to talk about what kind of other options may be there for, other community uses.
Yeah. It's been neat. All right. Any other questions? We have a motion and a second to place resolution number 1338-0624 to the agenda. September 17th council meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Hey, one more.
And last one. All right, so we are a very small department, and it's myself acting as the current building official. We hired a building inspector just about a month ago. And he's working on getting the appropriate training and certifications to become a certified building official, but that's going to take a period of time. And so he can do residential inspections and by the end of October, some residential plan reviews, most residential plan reviews. But we do have a lot of work in the pipeline. We have 199 homes at Olympic Heights that was approved in preliminary plat just a couple, I guess around a couple months ago now. We just received an application, well, the beginning parts of an application for 306 more homes. And we are still working with another developer on just kind of some final tweaks on 365 homes. So we've got a lot of work in the pipeline. And we absolutely need outside support to help get these permits through. Time is money for these developers, and by building an on-call pool, we can call anybody on the list and say, hey, are you available to review this multifamily project, this, block of 60 new residences and so on and so on. And we can move things a little bit faster. We can keep our internal review for kind of the day-to-day kind of stuff. We can handle our day-to-day, but I'll just give you an example. In March this year, when the building code changed, we had a glut of applications. We had about 60 single-family homes plus 42-unit apartment complex plus a bunch of other tenant improvements and things that just all come in at once. And we're still churning through our backlog on that one because it's just so much all at once. And we're talking about 10 times that much in the next year or two. So we absolutely are going to need more help. And probably, if this all starts to come to fruition, additional staffing inside the department as well, which is a good problem to have right now. We're very excited to see this growth coming because with that is going to come a lot of ancillary commercial growth and so on and so on. But digress, which I'm good at. So we had an RFQ, a request for qualifications. We received 5 solicitations, and 4 of them were found to be qualified. And so we're recommending contracting with all 4 of them. They all provide essentially the same services. A few lean more into plan review than inspection, which is fine. We have a residential inspector on staff. Some of them will be able to provide commercial plan review and inspection services. All of them will do commercial plan and inspection services, and a few will do the residential as well. So we're recommending approval of this resolution to establish an on-call building services pool and to direct the city manager to sign the contract with the 4 selected firms. Happy to answer any questions.
We have a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to place resolution number 1347-0824 on the action agenda. 17, 2024 council.
Second. All right, comments, questions? Absolutely great idea. Having a pool full of plan reviewers, inspectors, whatever we need is a great idea. So I imagine it's the same deal. 70% of permit fees goes. City retains 30%.
Each of them has a slightly different cost recovery structure, but it's essentially the same model.
Great. Questions?
At some point, are we going to bring back some of these contracts to ourselves when we have the capacity to hire?
So these don't necessarily guarantee revenue to these reviewers. This is like as they're available, as we have projects, we give them. It's exchange like that. So if we did have more capacity in-house, assuming that we could accurately predict a sustained forecast of building, not just one glut of 200 homes, but I mean, if it's truly going to be 200, 300, 365, so on moving forward over the next couple of years, we can start to forecast a little bit better. And at that point, I would hope that we would bring some back internally. But this I hope is a relief valve for staff. Like this shouldn't long-term replace what we can do, but should definitely augment us during the surge as we get, a bulk of permits.
For example, back in 2018, I think, when the schools started after the bond measure in 17, Mountain View Elementary School's new construction, I think they had capital projects on every school. We sent those out for review at that point, just because it takes a lot of effort to go through that plan review process that we're, as Jay mentioned, you're not getting that day-to-day work done. So those are instances that come about to the city that it's really useful to have this pool to utilize, send it out now. In those instances, we did most of the inspections, so it depends on staff availability and time and capabilities if we're going to move forward as such.
It just seems that we're in that weird point where we're just big enough that it costs us more instead of being big enough for us to do it in-house. You know, so that's just my concern. I was just expressing, that's all.
Yeah. To solve our engineering problems.
No. Unfortunately, this is not for PEs, for professional engineers, civil engineers now.
Building. So builders, some other places, they want to build a shelter, they make it easy for them. That's what I like. To see. So if this gets up there, then great.
A motion and second by resolution number 1347-0824 on the action agenda, September 17th council meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Now, no action items, Mark, you guys do Andrew.
Just a couple things, Mr. Mayor, Council, I think school started today, right? Yeah, so, just remind everybody what's going on out there, a lot more cars out in the streets. And typically when school starts this time of year, we start some projects within our parks. Nealon Park will be closed, the playground will be closed tomorrow for its annual sealing. We apply sealer on the wood structure to maintain its integrity. It very well will be closed for a week while that sealer is curing. So there'll be signs up, ribbons up, we'll announce it probably when it opens back up to the community. But this annual maintenance has led it to, boy, I have to think back 7 years, I think, old now. Which the initial life expectancy was about 20 years. So this annual maintenance helps preserve that structure and doesn't have too many more years left in it, but we'll continue maintaining as long as we can because we know it's a popular facility and amenity within our parks. And that is all I have for you tonight.
Council, I have a new one. Our next meeting, September 17th. Today's session is September 10th at 6 p.m. This meeting